Castlevania Aria of Sorrow is a 2003 Game Boy Advance Castlevania title released by Konami, and the game was met with pretty terrible sales in Japan, which blows my mind because this is a top-notch game for the system and a shining star in a series with many great titles. The game did see success in North America, with many calling it the best title in the series since Symphony of the Night, and I can see why. The game's story is as follows. Aria of Sorrow is set in the year 2035, where Dracula has long been sealed away after the Battle of 1999. The plot follows the journey of Soma Cruz, a teenager granted occult powers as a result of being a potential vessel of Dracula's reincarnation, as he battles dark figures that wish to inherit the undead lord's power as he is trapped in the castle Castlevania. That's pretty much the basis of the game, and it's a pretty simple setup. You're trapped in the castle. The game never seems to make much use of the futuristic setting, but I guess that could kind of interfere with the dark tones of the series. The story itself actually isn't bad, which surprised me because it's a pretty simple Castlevania game. It doesn't really need a good story. But the good thing is that the story didn't interfere with the gameplay too much. The only thing I didn't really like was how characters just randomly appear for not even story reasons, just randomly throughout the mansion. You would be just going about your business when bam, random person shows up and chats it up with you for a while before leaving. In this way, the plot felt a tad messy, but nothing I could really complain about. At least there isn't terrible voice acting, which is a relief. The gameplay is where this title really shines, of course, being a Castlevania game. Taking cues from Symphony of the Night, Aria of Sorrow is in the Metroidvania style, where you wander around a large maze-like area looking for where to go next. However, whereas most Metroid games at least give you a target area, Aria of Sorrow is perfectly content letting the player figure out where to go next. And I would complain about this, but the actual gameplay is so addicting and fun that I kind of forgive that. There's a ton to see, hidden areas, baddies, everything throughout the castle and more. Although the game only takes somewhere under 5 hours to beat, there's a lot of replay value, especially in getting one of the multiple endings. The game is an action RPG, where you run around the areas of the mansion using a variety of weapons, leveling up, updating equipment, etc. However, instead of special weapons like in other Castlevania games, the protagonist has the ability to take the souls of the monsters he kills and use their attacks as his own. These souls give your character cool abilities like throwing weapons, flight, automatic healing. There's a good amount of customization that'll mean you'll never play the game in the same way twice. There are tons of souls to collect, though you kind of have to farm them from enemies, and the status screen isn't too organized with these souls. Still, you'll have a ton of fun hunting down all the secrets, souls, and everything else this vast castle has to offer. The controls in Aria of Sorrow are actually really tight, and unlike many action games, there are a ton of ways to go about combat to suit your own personality. If you're creative enough, you can overcome any challenge, but you can also just level up if things get too dicey. Also, unlike earlier Castlevania games, this game isn't all that difficult, mainly because you can level up, and the bosses aren't all that hard. In fact, the only one who really kicked my ass was Death, appropriately. So those hoping for a really challenging adventure will probably be a little disappointed, even with the final bosses. Other than that, Aria of Sorrow was a title I couldn't put down. It was so satisfying to beat down all these enemies in all these different ways. The bosses were fun, it was a quick game that got to the point, and the fact that they could do this all in a portable title made it all the more fun. The graphics in the game are pretty impressive for 2003, despite the fact that no one has a face. The locations and bosses really stole the show, with gruesome, colorful, and memorable battles throughout this sprawling mansion. The game really took care to pay homage to previous titles in the series, especially in areas like the clock tower, and it was really nice to see so many visually unique areas that were true to the original Castlevania style. This game was also super bloody, like one of the few Game Boy Advance titles I think actually deserved a teen rating. The music in Aria of Sorrow is pretty outstanding. Hell, the music in Castlevania games is always a highlight, but this one didn't fail to impress. The Clock Tower theme was especially outstanding, but I couldn't pick one song in this game that was lazy or not catchy. It was a pretty impressive soundtrack. In conclusion, Aria of Sorrow is one of the best action games on the system, and I'm really glad that I followed people's advice and tried it, despite not being a huge Castlevania fan. The RPG action gameplay was tight, the Metroidvania style was not as frustrating as I thought, and the game seems to do everything it needed to right. Even if you aren't a veteran of the series, if you like action RPGs and don't mind a bit of maze action, then you owe it to yourself to pick this one up. Thanks for watching.